Okay. We are live, but we shall let it breathe just for a moment here. And then we are going to fire off a brand new episode of the Huddle. Oh, I almost did it.
Yep.
Almost. Welcome in, everybody. It is the Mile High Huddle podcast. I'm your host, Chad Jensen. With me, my fellow football priest. You know him, you love him, the deputy editor of milehighhuddle.com, Zack Kelberman. Zack, how did you how did you enjoy your terrestrial debut, or your debut, I should say, as a terrestrial radio host today on Mile High Sports Radio
Man,
98.1 FM?
man, I had so much fun, honestly. Like, way more fun than I thought. There was a little bit of a transitional period. I'm a creature of habit, as you know, Chad. So anything foreign to me, it takes like a few days of adjustment. But for day number one, couldn't have had more fun with you. Couldn't be more appreciative for the platform that we have now. Hopefully, some of y'all tuned in. It was kind of weird talking Broncos, though, and not having the chat. Honestly, not having our wonderful faithful followers and supporters to interact with, but I had a blast and looking forward to doing more of them.
That's what I was going to say is it was fun. I mean, who can complain about being given the opportunity and a platform to talk about football, to talk about the Broncos for an hour? But it was not as fun. As much as I love Zach, it wasn't as fun as me, Zach, and you guys talking. We can shake that up as we get farther into the Mile High Huddle show on 98.1 FM in Denver. Figure out ways to integrate our audience, figure out ways to integrate our super chat superstars and supporters from the podcast. But as a debut, I think it was pretty solid, and look forward to keeping her going, dude.
Yeah, it'll get easier too next week with training camp starting, preseason around the corner, and we're going to have a
Oh
lot
yeah.
to talk about on the podcast, on the radio show. Again, guys, if you want to check it out, 98.1 FM in Denver, Mile High Sports Radio, 5 days a week, baby. Your football priests are on the airwaves.
2 p.m. Mountain Time.
That's right. Crucial
Zach,
information.
gotta pick your brain on this article that let me do. I gotta do. Oh wait, before we do the Melvin Gordon, Sam Bam jumped in early before we even went live with a very generous super chat.
Thank you, Sam.
Appreciate you, bro. He says, "Evening, Chad, Zach, and Broncos country. 8 Mondays to go until the opener to win. The Broncos get back to winning ways and being relevant again. Go Broncos." I feel you on that, Sam Bam. But Zach, I would argue that the Broncos are relevant already because Russell Wilson has almost single-handedly made the Denver Broncos a national talking point across the board.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the Melvin Gordon article that I had up today on the website. And I led off by saying second-year general manager George Peyton transformed the Broncos from an NFL laughingstock into a must-see playoff contender. And he did that with two moves. First, the hiring of Nathaniel Hackett, then the acquisition of Russell Wilson. So, really until they do win and they are a bona fide playoff team and it's all said and done, there's still going to be, the maybes and the apprehension is going to exist with them. But yeah, they're relevant again. The national exposure certainly indicates as much, Chad. Primetime games and nationally televised preseason games. The Broncos are back, and they're only going to become more relevant from here on out.
How ironic it is that for the second time today, we are referencing a Bill Barnwell article on ESPN. Here's what he said. What went wrong? So I'm going to quote you, Zach, for a second. If there's even one misstep George Payton committed over the past 6 months, according to Bill Barnwell, who ranked Denver's 2022 haul as the league's best, re-signing running back Melvin Gordon qualifies, but barely. Here's what Barnwell said. What went wrong? Fantasy owners certainly wanted the organization to commit to running back Javonte Williams, but they did bring back veteran Melvin Gordon. Gordon's numbers were more impressive than his actual impact. His two longest receptions came on checkdowns on the final plays of the first half, and his 70-yard touchdown run against the Giants came with Denver up by 2 scores in the fourth quarter. But it's hard to be too upset about a one-year deal for $2.5 million. And that last thing he said there, Zach, is my ultimate takeaway, to be honest with you, is I feel you. We kind of hope this might be the year of the Pookie, but when you get a running back that is, he's got his warts, but is as accomplished as Melvin Gordon and as good of a scheme fit he is in the zone, wide zone, for $2.5 million on 1 year. Like, you don't look that gift horse in the mouth.
No, and guys, we were doing the radio show today, and one of the things I missed was knowing that my audience already is aware of how I feel about Melvin Gordon. Didn't want to come off with too hard of a bias on show number one, but I even mentioned something nice in the article. I said, as a RB2, he's pretty much elite, and it's a risk worth taking, but I don't understand why Barnwell cited fantasy football. You think George Payton, Nathaniel Hackett care about fantasy football? No, they care about having a big backfield, winning a lot of football games, and having those two running backs will help them do so. But again, it should be where Pookie is the RB1, established, no two ways about it, Chad. No doubt about it. It should be Pookie's job, and he shouldn't have to fight Melvin Gordon for it. We talked about that earlier. I'd be happy to get into it again.
Yeah. Real quick, some pleasantries, some hellos. Diamond Rattler, the first to comment on YouTube. Dylan, moderating the chat for us on YouTube. Good to see you, Dylan. Appreciate you, buddy. Shout out to Dale Fleming. What's good, bro? Hope you're doing okay. Hope you're holding up all right. We shouted out Sam Bam, Jeff Noyes, William. Who am I missing early? Those are all the early birds. Jay, good to see you, buddy. And then, of course, we would be remiss to not tip our caps to Phil McLaughlin throwing down on Facebook, one of our great super supporters there on the Book of Faces. Great to see you, Phil. Where in the world is Phil McLaughlin? It's a question for the sages and prophets in time. No one knows where exactly Phil could be at this very moment, although we do know which city he hangs his hat. But it's good to see you, Phil.
Thank you, Phil. As always.
As always, just kind of skimming through the chat. We got some content we definitely want to get to tonight, some topics that we want to hash out and get y'all your take on a few of these things as well. Jerry says, so Barnwell's entire point is that fantasy players might be unhappy. You got to be kidding me, right? Well said. I mean, this is football, not fantasy football.
It's also nitpicking on Barnwell's part, and he admits that. He goes, his first sentence, which I cut out because it's also the same point I made, was like, there's not too much to be unhappy about when it comes to the Broncos offseason. When you land Russell Wilson, when you hire Nathaniel Hackett, when you make big moves like Randy Gregory, DJ Jones, K'Wan Williams, the players they added in the draft, it's hard to really fault what George Payton has done. And if that's the biggest discrepancy on the Broncos roster is paying Melvin Gordon $2.5 million to be the RB2, they're in a good position, a really good one.
No doubt about it. Okay, another topic I want to get your opinion on here is Thomas Hall, who is, of course, the host of his own podcast on MHH, Legends of Mile High. As we have kind of marched through the off season, he's been releasing two different series. Two different series. One is his countdown to Canton, laying out the most deserving former Broncos of the Hall of Fame. And then also, top 100 Broncos of all time, that, quintessential off-season content. And it was really cool today. Of course, it just so happened to be the next one up was the number 7 guy on his list, which is Mike Shanahan. And the reason I say that it's cool is because we learned what's funny about this is he actually submitted the article, I don't know, a week, maybe even sooner before Shanahan was officially named a semifinalist. So it's really cool that it's working out this way. Shanahan is now officially, Zach, in the conversation, not just the conversation, like he is being scrutinized and literally in the conversation of the voters themselves for the Hall of Fame. But as you go through his article and you learn about his overall Hall of Fame resume, you get down to the Bill Cowher stuff. And this is one that has gotten Denver Broncos fans goat for a long, long time, is how could it be that Bill Cowher is in the Hall of Fame and Mike Shanahan isn't? Well, just because Shanahan won 2 Super Bowls, albeit back-to-back, and Cowher only has 1, believe it or not, their resumes are actually much closer than you might think in terms of years coaching, overall wins, win percentage, stuff like that. But if you can remember this, Zach, this is what I wanted to get your take on is back ahead of the Super Bowl, Cowher was quoted as saying, Mike Shanahan belongs in the Hall of Fame. I've said it. The 2 toughest coaches I had the hardest time preparing against were Bill Belichick and Mike Shanahan. So my question to you, Zach, is with guys like that are already in the Hall, like Cowher, and you got to expect, and I got to expect and assume he's not going to be the only one that believes Mike Shanahan should be in the Hall of Fame. Who do you think is more likely to get in? Don Coryell, who a lot of people think, no, Mike will get in next year. It's going to be Coryell this year, or Mike Shanahan this year. I'm talking.
Well, my answer to the other question, why did Cowher make it and not Shanahan, is that look at the logos. If it was a Steelers logo that Shanahan had on his hat or on his shirt throughout his tenure, he'd be in the Hall of Fame. Steelers versus Broncos, in the eyes of the voters, there is no choice there. If it was the 49ers, Packers, Cowboys, these legacy franchises, they get the first dibs. There's a bias for those teams, and I think there's a bias against the Denver Broncos. I would hope Shanahan gets in. It's a criminal act, in my book, a football criminal act of keeping him out of Canton, keeping him out of enshrinement, considering the resume. Look at it right there. I mean, he beats Cowher in most categories. He's at least comparable to him. And if Cowher is in, why not Shanahan? So I want to say he'd get in before Coryell, but considering who he was with and his legacy as well, it's not looking good for old Mike.
Dude, I think Shanahan's legacy, for what it's worth, dwarfs Don Coryell. I really do. As a head coach, I think you got the Air Coryell scheme and all that. Cool. All right. You didn't win a Super Bowl as a head coach. And Mike Shanahan has the zone blocking scheme. And even though Mike Shanahan cannot take perfect 100% credit for the zone scheme, because after all, we can't forget the co-brainchild behind that, Alex Gibbs. Oh, I know what I was going to show you. But he brings that to the table in terms of innovative scheme that, brought home 2 world championships. And then now, what are we at now? 20 plus years from the time of those 2 back-to-back Super Bowls. It is like the most popular scheme, offensive philosophy that everybody is moving towards. It's some sort of an offshoot of the West Coast. It's either going to be an offshoot on the Shanahan side, or it's going to be an offshoot on the Gruden side. And I just think it dwarfs him. I think it dwarfs Coryell, but if he's been in line longer, so to speak, those type of factors and considerations could take precedence. But Zach, check this out. So this is, I'm going to quote Tom here. The header is Hall of Fame helpers, more with less. One could also argue that Cowher was aided by more talented players if, he's just playing devil's advocate here, if you count the number of Hall of Famers he coached. If one doesn't think that argument holds water, the other option is to assert that voters favor the Steelers franchise, which is why more Pittsburgh greats are in Canton from Cowher's head coaching tenure than, say, Shanahan's Broncos era. Cowher was blessed with the following gold-jacketed players during his era, all right? Alan Faneca, Jerome Bettis, Rod Woodson, Dermontti Dawson, and Troy Polamalu. And then he also coached and got his 1 Super Bowl win came with Ben Roethlisberger, who is destined to be on the first ballot Hall of Famer. And then also Hines Ward, who there is an upswell of people trying to get Ward into the Hall. And then he mentions 2 others that helped Cowher in his success. A Hall of Fame executive by the name of Dan Rooney, a.k.a. everyone knows him, the Rooney Rule, etc., and a Hall of Fame scout in Bill Nunn. So he says that's a lot of gold fabric helping to grease Cowher's wheels. It numbers 10 enshrinees. All right, now Shanahan. He also had some Hall of Fame helpers, Zach, to be sure, but so far, not as many. John Elway, Terrell Davis, Shannon Sharp, Gary Zimmerman, Steve Atwater, and then, of course, posthumously, Pat Bowlen. So what he says here, and I like this, is either Shanahan was a better coach and got more out of lesser players, or the voters are overlooking deserving Broncos. Perhaps the answer is both. Either way, if Cowher got into the Hall, Shanahan also deserves to be immortalized, etc. It's a pretty impervious argument. Like, it's hard to penetrate that.
Yeah, and I was thinking about the Coryell versus Shanahan argument, and I agree with what you said, and I agree that Shanahan probably has the more impressive resume, but to the neutral football fan or the Hall of Fame voter, what carries more weight, the Air Coryell offense or the zone blocking scheme? I think the former would get the pick there. My thing, though, when it comes to Cowher versus Shanahan is why not both? They're both qualified. They both should be in there. They have the resumes. They have the accolades. I think they have the support, or at least we know Cowher does. They both should get in. It shouldn't be an either-or proposition.
Agreed. They are not mutually exclusive. And that's why I really appreciated Cowher kind of pounding the table for Shanahan in his own way, saying, look, when you get mentioned by a Hall of Fame head coach amongst the likes of Bill Belichick is the only other option of the two hardest guys he ever had to scheme against. I mean, then you go, all right, well, that's interesting. What was this guy's resume? And then you go, oh, okay, yeah, this dude should be in the Hall of Fame. Honestly, to me, Zach, and I've been saying this for a long time, long before Shanahan ever became a semifinalist, it's not a matter of if for Shanny, it's when. And one of the things that has hurt his cause, and we heard this from Jason Cole himself when we had him on the show, that his own team didn't put him in the Ring of Fame till last year because of whatever, issues existed between, purportedly anyway, as rumors would have it, between Shanahan and Joe Ellis, the president / CEO of the Denver Broncos. But now that he's in the ring, I think it'll be relative short order. It might not be right away, but I think within the next 3-year window, Mike Shanahan will be enshrined. Charlie Dominguez throwing down stars. Thank you, buddy.
I really hope you're right, but what do you say about the past being the best predictor of the future? I mean, look at what Pat Bowlen went through, Terrell Davis, Steve Atwater. It took them forever to get in the Hall, Chad, and there's still a couple, Gradishar, Mecklenburg, that should be in there as well. So I do think Shanahan will get in, but I don't think he's ever going to get in ahead of the more quote-unquote popular candidates.
Yes, the most, what was the word that Thomas found here or used here? Let me see. This is going to bug me. I got to find it real quick. Talking about how the Steelers are sacrosanct, right? One of the sacrosanct teams of the NFL. Yeah. Mark the God King, 2 nights in a row throwing down supers. Really appreciate that, my brother. He says, what's up, my guys? Chad and Zach, good dudes. And hey, Scott, how you been, buddy? Mark, dude, you're a legend. We love you. You're on the MHH Mount Rushmore, and your profile pic is popping, dude. We love you.
Yeah, I wasn't around to see you last night, Mark, but I definitely appreciate you popping in tonight and making your presence felt. You are the God King for a reason. You've earned that nickname way more than once over, and we definitely appreciate you. Hope you're having a good night.
Here is an interesting question from Quincy on Facebook. Is it wrong that I'm not sold on Courtland Sutton? Is it wrong? Zach, what are your thoughts?
First of all, shout out to Quincy. I believe he goes back to like the 24/7 days. Long time listener of our product. So appreciate you popping in, Quincy. Is it wrong? No, I'm not going to tell you how to be a Broncos fan. I'm not going to quantify what wrong and right would be in this case. There's certainly reason to have apprehension. He had that ACL injury. I think he'll be fully healthy. Sutton will this year, and he'll be back to that pre-injury form, but you never really know. There's also the question of the pecking order. Is Courtland Sutton a bona fide top 15 receiver in the NFL, in my opinion? Can he outlast the competition from Tim Patrick, Jerry Jeudy, and also the tight ends and also the running backs? Is he going to be the alpha dog number 1 receiver? I don't think it's wrong. I think it's unpopular, Quincy, how you feel about Courtland Sutton, but I wouldn't say it's wrong necessarily.
I understand some skepticism because he popped. One of the things that made his Pro Bowl season so impressive was that he produced at such a high level, literally in the eye of the storm of quarterback instability. 3 different starters that he caught passes from that year, and he still made the Pro Bowl. Then he got hurt, and then he returns from being hurt, and he wasn't quite the same. But I wouldn't be too skeptical, my friend, because the Broncos certainly aren't. I mean, he did give him a hometown discount. He could have waited and got more on the open market, but he took the money. And I think the Broncos, even still, Zach, they're showing fans what they think of Courtland Sutton by saying, look, here's tens of millions of dollars in guaranteed money. I think now that you have not just quarterback stability, but like a dynamic player under center, you're going to see Courtland Sutton. Whatever your fears, whatever your misgivings might be about your skepticism on Courtland, that's going to be smoothed over in relatively short order. Gregory, dude, wow. 2 nights in a row throwing down top rope caliber super chats for you football priests. We love it. We appreciate it, dude. Thank you. He's relative newcomer as a super chat superstar, relative meaning within the last month or so throwing down like this. But dude, quickly growing into a super chat superstar. Appreciate you, Gregory.
And he already has a phrase. That would be a G-bomb from Gregory. Definitely appreciate you. That's so kind, so generous. Thank you. When it comes to Courtland Sutton, though, Chad, I wonder, would he have signed that deal if he knew less than a year later the wide receiver market would explode? It doesn't surprise me that Tim Patrick took that type of deal, but Courtland Sutton, I think, fancies himself to be that alpha dog number 1. So I like, and that's also another thing. Is he going to respond after getting paid? That, you can not call it big bucks, but it's what, $16 million a year. It's a lot of money for a receiver coming off an injury. Is he going to live up to that contract? Is he going to outplay it, or is he going to fall short? I'm as big as a Sutton fan as they come, Chad. I have a mini signed helmet on my bookshelf behind me, but I'm not totally against Quincy for having the opinion that maybe there's a little more apprehension and skepticism about Courtland Sutton than people want to let on.
For people that want to make it out to seem like Courtland, he's making peanuts, think about this, all right? Peyton Manning, which, hey, he was calling the signals for your Denver Broncos not that long ago, right? 6 years, he's been gone. The last year, and the Broncos won the Super Bowl, he accepted a pay cut that took him down to $16 million. Pardon me, $15 million. Courtland Sutton's making $1 million more APY than Peyton Manning. Peyton got the last laugh ultimately, though, because he hit all the contract accelerators that got him right back to his original salary because they won the Super Bowl. But shifting gears back real quick here, Zach, to Shanahan and the Hall of Fame. Jerry on YouTube, appreciate you being with us, Jerry. Says, do you think maybe Hall of Fame voters downgrade Shanny because he had a first ballot quarterback and a future Hall of Fame running back powering the offense? What are your thoughts on that, Zach?
Well, I was thinking when you were going over the players and individuals that Cowher was associated with, it seemed like from the way the article was worded that Cowher should get no credit and all, he was carried by those players as an example. Well, it works both ways as well. He had a first ballot quarterback, Mike Shanahan did, and a running back and everything, but he coached them. He made them better because of his scheme, because of his football intelligence, his acumen. It works both ways. Yes, they helped him being that generational type talent, but Mike Shanahan and Bill Cowher both, they had a hand in it being as innovative as they were on the sideline.
I don't think it hurts his case in any way, shape, or form. In fact, if anything, it's a form of confirmation, not bias, but, it's a way of them confirming their opinions, because look at all the Hall of Fame. I'll put it this way. Find every Hall of Fame head coach from, say, from Super Bowl era on, all right? Exactly. Find a Hall of Fame coach, and you'll find the corresponding Hall of Fame quarterback. I mean, it's not rocket science. So thank you for that, Mr. Producer. Michaela, the Duchess, you want to talk about a Michaela bomb. Very generous of you, my friend. We love you. We appreciate you. She says, not to be outdone. Never. I think Melvin might cause chaos in the locker room. May the MHH be with you always. Amen to that, sister. Appreciate you, Michaela. What are your thoughts, Zach?
If Melvin Gordon might cause chaos in the locker room, well, as much as I may dislike Melvin on a professional level, he hasn't been a cancer in the locker room either the last couple seasons. He seems to be well-liked by his teammates, well-liked by the coaching staff. I don't like certain aspects of Melvin Gordon's game, his fumbling, his attitude, his, no-shows at voluntary practices, but I don't think he's going to be a cancer where he's going to destroy the locker room from the inside out. As long as he understands that he's the present and Pookie is the future, I think he'll be okay.
Dude, ever since the example was set by the great Rod Smith, who never missed a workout, never missed anything, voluntary, mandatory, ever since that, what I consider to be Hall of Fame example, it always gets my goat a little bit when players don't show. It'd be one thing if they all decided not to show up. It's voluntary and they all decide as a collective, hey, no, we're not going to come. We're not, pay us to be here and we'll be here. Okay, cool. But when almost everybody else is there and you're not there, to me, Zach, that's just always left a bad taste in my mouth. Same. But getting back to Michaela's point here, I think that's the worst of it with Melvin. Really, I think that's about the worst of it. I've never heard word one about any kind of cancerous, influence in the locker room. Sometimes some of the things he says can be a little bit distasteful. Some of his off the field behavior can be a little bit distasteful, but to me, that's really about the worst of it.
Plus, he's a mercenary nowadays. Winning cures all, and winning would make Melvin the happiest running back no matter how many carries he's getting on a weekly basis. He wants to get paid, and he wants to win a chip. If one of those two things happened, the second would precipitate the first. But as long as he's winning, as long as he's taken care of, and as long as the team is doing good, they'll be okay.
Michaela, love you. Andrew, what's up, bro? Good to see you, my friend. He says with some serious star action. We seriously appreciate that, buddy. What's up, fam? Chad, Zach, Scott. How did the radio show go, and how can I listen from Nebraska? MHH for life. It went well. We had a a lot of fun. It was not as fun, if we're being honest. In terms of like, hey, when you go spend an hour doing something, would you rather be on the Mile High Huddle podcast, talking with y'all, talking with to ourselves, to each other and with y'all, or would you rather be on the radio for an hour? What's more fun? Zach, I found with one swing at the plate on the radio side, this is more fun because of the dialectic and the conversation and the interaction. But I think that's a clue for us to figure out how to weave our community into the radio show one way or another.
Plus, like anything else, repetition, one show versus 4 years. But, it felt like we were working when we did the radio show. This feels like we got off work. We're at the pub right now. We're having beers and talking Broncos football. So we love y'all for that. Seriously, the interaction is priceless and valuable. We definitely do not appreciate it.
Michael Ronquillo in the house too. Just wanted to shout you out, buddy. It's great to see you. He's tipping his cap to Andrew Baker. Jeff, we could talk about, is Pete Carroll a Hall of Fame coach? I mean, we're on the topic of Hall of Fame, and here we are. It's July 18th. So let's keep it short, though, Zach. Is Pete Carroll a Hall of Fame coach?
I don't know. He presided over one of the best defenses in NFL history. One of the best quarterbacks in NFL history. I feel like, Richard Sherman is going to be a Hall of Famer, probably Bobby Wagner as well, Russell Wilson. So I feel like if we go on the previous template of players carrying these candidates or helping these candidates, I would have to think so. Maybe not a first ballot, but I can definitely see him sneaking in there.
And the longer he coaches, the more he racks up the total career wins, the better his odds are at improving his playoff winning percentage and all that stuff. But he almost became the sixth. I'm trying to think if it happened since then. Well, he almost became the sixth head coach to win back-to-back world titles, so I mean, he was one bad offensive play call away from being that guy. I think he'll eventually get in, to be honest with you, because one thing about Pete, too, is I get it. It's the Pro Football Hall of Fame, but you also have a prolific resume at the college level. And even though on the tail end of the USC thing, there was some controversy and some ignominy with the boosters, and they took Reggie's Heisman away and all that. For the most part, outside of his first head coaching stint in the NFL, wherever Pete has gone, dubs, success, championships have followed.
Every time you mention the Super Bowl, I think of the poor lawn chair I destroyed that night because I was so angry about not running the freaking ball from the 1 yard line with Marshawn Lynch. Pete Carroll also has that energy. He kind of has that reputation for being the gum chewer, the high octane kind of guy, Chad. Very much out there, very much outside the box. So all those factors, I think it will help him in his push for Canton, but he's definitely not a first ballot guy in my book.
That's right. Scott's reminding me they stripped USC of their BCS title too. So technically, in hindsight, historically speaking, he did not win a BCS title at USC. Did Pete Carroll. Juero, what's up, bro? Appreciate the super chat. Great to see you. He says, what's up, Priest? Wish I could listen to the radio show, but I'm in LA. See you guys at the Niners game where Russ reminds them, who's daddy? You can listen live through their app. There is a Mile High Sports Radio app you can download. I did a little bit of research. I still don't know about the Sirius thing, but you can listen on the app live. And then after, if you go to their site, you can click on Radio on Demand, and it goes by show, and you can click on whatever show, and you can listen to the episodes on demand. I don't know if they have that all set up for us quite yet, just because we debuted today, just being honest with you. But within a week or so's time, I can promise you that it will be no problem listening to that show on demand or live. So appreciate that. Sam Bam, again, number 2 tonight.
Thank you.
Love it, dude. Not Broncos related, but what do you think Deshaun Watson's suspension will be, if at all? And when do you think it'll be announced? This saga has gone on too long. Hashtag tired of it. Zach?
I think next week it'll come down. I believe that's when the judge is going to make her ruling in the case. And I'm expecting a year. It's what the NFL is pushing for. It would be decent. A PR solution for them, considering all his accusations, a year suspension after they've, mismanaged the Ezekiel Elliott, Ray Rice situations. I think that would be appropriate, but there's a condition where he can appeal and maybe get that cut in half. So I think at minimum, Deshaun will get 8 games. I think at max, he would get a year. But it came out today that if he gets a year, he's going to sue the NFL, I think, in federal court over some. It's going to be a long, drawn out saga, but I think a year.
So just playing devil's advocate here, just for the sake of Steel Manning for our conversation, Steel Manning, Deshaun Watson. He was never proved or convicted of anything criminal. Don't you think even 8 games is a tad heavy-handed? Now, I'm not making light of the accusations and the what's the word that they use? The staggering number of accusations, right? The proliferation of evidence, whatever. I'm missing the right word, but I'm not trying to make light of that. I'm playing devil's advocate, but there was never anything enough, Zach, for that local DA or grand jury, I should say, to press charges, let alone get criminally convicted. So is that a little heavy-handed, or has this now become more about PR and public perception, etc.?
Yes, because I fully agree with you, Chad. You know that off cam, you know how I kind of align with you on most things like that. But it's what the masses want. It's what the mob wants, and the NFL has shown a proclivity to kind of bend down and kowtow to the mob, the masses, the public, and it's what the sponsors want. It's what the companies involved with the NFL want, because it all boils down to this in the end. That's the money sign. So it would be, to me, considering no criminal charges, a full year, even though I think it'd be with pay, and he was paid last year and made millions of dollars, but it's the age we live in now, Chad. That's what we have to keep in mind now.
For what it's worth, in no way, shape, or form am I making light of the accusations that were leveled against Deshaun Watson. And I was hopeful, because again, when it's 1, when it's 2, you raise your eyebrow. When it's 3, you're going, wait a minute. When it's in the double digits, we're in the 20s. I'm over here hoping they find enough to criminally charge the guy, but they didn't, unfortunately, right? It didn't happen. So in the United States, you're innocent till proven guilty. That's the reality. All right. But the NFL, hey, they're a private entity. They can decide things however they want. Right. And so now, as Zach mentioned, it becomes a matter of public opinion. It becomes the court of public opinion, etc. But enough Deshaun Watson talk. Gary Leach Palmer in the house. What's going on, brother? Hey, Chad, Zach, Scott, another day closer to the season. Go Broncos, and let's ride. Yes, indeed. Let's see. What are we, Zach? 9 days out, I think. 9 days? From camp, I mean.
Yeah, it's next Wednesday, the 27th. They report the veterans and the rookies next Tuesday. The first practice is Wednesday. It's right around the corner. And 8 weeks from today, almost to the minute, Russell Wilson will be getting his first victory in a Broncos uniform. And as he posted on social media today, that uniform includes cleats, Chad, that say fourth is next, or fourth coming up soon. And it has a Super Bowl trophy logo. So got to love that from Russell Wilson, the confidence and the want to heading into the season.
Love that, dude. Is that what Michael's talking about here? Russell Wilson was wearing orange football cleats with words saying the 4th Super Bowl coming soon for the Broncos organization all over Twitter. Yeah, dude. Russ is living. He wasted 0 time signaling to Broncos country that I'm a Bronco. Like, hey, 10 years in Seattle. Hey, vanquished y'all in a Super Bowl, etc. But that was then. This is now. Like, I'm all in on Broncos. Let's ride. And that's kind of bold, right? That's a little bit bold. I mean, maybe it's not Babe Ruth calling his shot, right, in the heat of the moment, but it is quite bold.
And that's corny, by the way. If that's a corny cornerback, then I'm fine with corny, man. I mean, I love the confidence. I love that he stepped into Denver and immediately is getting on board with the championship standard laid well before him by Pat Bowlen. He's getting the Broncos back to that level. It starts with, Chad, as silly as it sounds, it starts with something on your cleat, and it may end with hoisting the Lombardi next February.
Here it is. This is what everybody's talking about. So on his orange cleats, shout out to @Daily Broncos on Twitter. It says, and it's not, it looks like it's stitched, Zach. I mean, it doesn't even, well, no, it's not. I can't quite tell. Either way, it's quite permanently on that shoe. It's got a Lombardi trophy and then 4th coming soon, ... Rad, dude. Rad. Love that. And of course, he's saying fourth. He is talking to the Denver Broncos. Like it might not say forthcoming to the Denver Broncos, but obviously that's what he's saying. Not just because he plays for the Broncos, but Broncos have 3. This would make 4. Ben Wallman, appreciate you, bro. Thank you for the stars, big dog.
Real quick, though, before we get to Andrew, Allen's kind of furthering the narrative that Russ is mega corny, but we love it. Aside from the let's ride thing, which is a little overdone by Russ, how is he corny? I don't understand that. And if Russell Wilson's corny, what would that make Paxton Lynch? With the dabbing?
Right, sure. Well, I'll play devil's advocate once again, just for the sake of our conversation here. It's stuff like that where where ham-handedness, cheesiness, corniness. There's a little bit of the Tim Tebow-y goody two-shoes thing that people talk about with Russ, like he's about to go walk on water or something. It's just part of his reputation. I don't particularly view him as cringe. That's the worst I've heard is some of his stuff is cringe, not in a way where it's like bad or wrong, but just that, what makes you cringe? The height of like corniness, the height of, it gives you anxiety, like cringe. I'm not that far on Russ, but I mean, there's some things he's said and done in the past. Even the let's ride thing, like constantly asserting that. I can see why people would say that that's corny. Doesn't bother me, but maybe Zach, it's because he's now sporting the orange and blue. And it's not like I watched every single press conference as a Seahawk, like I do now. Like, right, he's my job now, right? He's on the team that I cover. It's not like I was watching. I was covering the Seahawks for 10 years, so there's a lot I'm sure I've missed.
I mean, you got people with no car and they're, overdrafting their bank accounts and they're talking crap on a 9-time Pro Bowler with a freaking supermodel, world famous R&B singer wife, millions of dollars, Super Bowl winner. I think some of it's envy too, but that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah. Andrew says we're in the dead time or dog days, but hell a lot better than this time last year. Yeah. I mean, this time last year, we were sitting here trying to project. No, they're not going to sit Drew down, are they? Or no, they brought Teddy in for a reason. What's going to happen? Those days are behind us. Those days are behind us. It's quarterback is solved. Quarterback is solved.
Thank God. I couldn't do another season of the competitions of a mid-level, if that, quarterback. Thank God every day that George Payton made the trade that he did.
As Dylan says, corny is better than toxic, and I'll do you even one better. Corny is better than loser, right? Corny, I'll take it. Even 2011, go back to the whirlwind Tebow season. I'll take the cheese ball, God bless y'all, Tim Tebow stuff, all right, and the Tebowing on the field stuff, and just some of his goody two shoes stuff. I take that all day long when you're winning the division and going to the playoffs that year, right? I mean, that year they backed into the division and they backed into the playoffs. We don't need to dredge all that stuff up, but I'll take that all day long. Now you multiply that, a force multiplier in the form of Russell Wilson. We're not talking, 8 wins, hold on for dear life, pray to God you make it to the playoffs. Like he's it's an upset when Wilson doesn't win double-digit games as a quarterback of an NFL team.
People don't hate losers. Remember that. It's true. And I think it applies to Russell Wilson. It applies to a lot of people in sports that are hated on for no other reason than the fact that they're successful. And I think that kind of translates over to Russ.
All right, we are at 38 minutes, and being that we're in the off season, guys, we're not gonna drag the show on for the sake of dragging it. If we run out of topics or things that you guys want us to get to, we'll sign off for the night. Phil asking about this show on some stars. Oh yeah, so Phil, you're wondering about the Sirius thing. Don't know for sure on Sirius yet. Still don't know. Did some research on it. It's still unclear for sure. But because I'm not an expert on Sirius on satellite radio or whatever. But again, guys, if you want to catch the Mile High Huddle show on 98.1 FM Mile High Sports Radio, Monday through Friday, 2 to 3 p.m. local time, Mountain Time, download the Mile High Sports Radio app and you can listen live, or just go to their website, milehighsports.com, click on the on demand, listen on demand, and you'll be able to find our show. I don't know, again, I didn't check before we went live if it's updated, if it's there yet, but give it a few days for us to settle in, all that stuff. You'll be able to find it on the regular if you're not local. or if you don't want to download the app, etc. Sam Bam, number 3, love you, bro.
Thank you,
He
sir.
says, yep, so glad we're not talking about an upcoming QB competition, and I hope we don't for a long time.
True that, for sure. It's when we have a podcast on July 18th, Chad, and the title is, ESPN says what went wrong with the Broncos by re-signing Melvin Gordon to a $2.5 million contract. If that's the worst thing we're talking about right now and not who the Broncos starting quarterback is going to be, I'm so happy. It's a new day, really. And I've said it since the Russell Wilson trade, pretty much since the Hackett hire, actually. But every day that gets closer to the season and we don't have those discussions anymore, we don't have those problems anymore, I thank God for it.
Jeff wanted to know, did Peyton go into the Hall of Fame as a Colt or a Bronco? They don't have to choose that anymore. So it's not something that is a thing any longer. So
he's a Bronco.
Yeah, I mean, just look at his actions post-retirement. We talked about this on the show today, in fact, on the radio show. Peyton makes himself available when the Colts come calling, if they need him for a Ring of Fame thing, or he will go and oblige them. But you're not seeing, reports indicate he's rebuffed any overtures of joining the organization in any sort of official capacity. He's maintained his home in Denver, right? He's raising his kids in Denver. Very engaged with the Broncos, even on an unofficial basis, Zach. Like the carousel of quarterbacks, each and every year, how many stories have we written about Peyton Manning, Trevor Siemian, Peyton Manning, Case Keenum, Peyton Manning. I don't remember writing one about Peyton Manning, Joe Flacco, or Peyton Manning, Paxton Lynch, but I can remember Kate Keenum articles, them talking, Locke articles, them talking, Teddy articles of them having great appreciation. So my point being here that Peyton is staying engaged with the Broncos. And then, of course, Woody Page confirming the Adam Schefter report from about a month ago that it's expected Peyton Manning is going to join the quote-unquote new alliance of ownership at the Walton Penner ownership group. We don't know for sure if it's ownership or if it's on some kind of an executive level or if it's on some kind of, like you and I spitballed today, Zach, brand ambassador type level. But Peyton's a Bronco through and through.
Yeah, if you followed Peyton closely on social media, what he's done, like even his golf events, his golf cart will have like Broncos colors or a Broncos logo subtly, but he has it on there. He's definitely a Bronco through and through, and you can tell the last couple of years and winning the title with them kind of made an impression that is forever.
Not only that, Zach, but Manning has a memory like an elephant, and you cut him.
Right.
You did draft him number 1 overall when after he threatened you and said, if you don't, I'm going to make you regret it for 15 years. Then you cut him. You cut him. And it would be one thing, Zach, if you cut him and you turned out to be right and he couldn't overcome all those neck surgeries and he flamed out, like signed that 5-year, $96 million deal with the Broncos and then goes on to kind of whimper out of the NFL. That's not what happened. The 4 years he played in Denver microwaved the previous 8 years, basically, from a production standpoint, statistically, Zach, from a wins, and then from just, it took him all 14 of his years to get to 2 Super Bowls in Indy, right? Let's see, 06, so he was eighth year veteran when he won his first Super Bowl and made his first Super Bowl, won it. And then, in 2009, so he's 11th, 12th year, whatever, when he got to the next one and lost it. In 4 years in Denver, he makes it to 2, wins 1, and then calls it a career, retires. It's that elephant's memory. He doesn't forget. You cut me, dude. You rejected me. It fueled him, I think, in large part to go do what he did and the way he microwaved things in Denver, but you cut him. And that has a lasting influence on, I think, how Peyton Manning views that relationship. Whether he would ever admit that or not, I think there's something there.
That's a great point. And when you kind of butterfly effect the thing out, it's crazy to think, like, if the Colts don't cut Peyton Manning, think about that sentence alone. If the Colts don't cut Peyton Manning, the Broncos probably don't win that Super Bowl in 2015 or 2016. So it's crazy. Thank you, Indy, for making that decision.
Plus, you cut him when he was down. You cut him when he needed you to support him still. And I get it. You could have cut him the year prior when he missed the whole entire season, 2011. He missed the entire season. But let's face it, the only reason they didn't cut him was because the cap ramifications weren't as favorable as they were when they ultimately did cut him in the spring of 2012. So not only did you cut him, but you cut him while he was down, dude. Like he needed your support. So it only dries the knife, A2 Brutus thing, right? Like Caesar in the Senate getting knifed in the back, further home in the Peyton Manning zeitgeist. But Zach, dude, what fun it is to talk with everybody. I got one more question from Ian I want to grab, and then let's dip out of here. Ian says on Facebook, is there any truth to the rumors Broncos want former Vikings linebacker Anthony Barr?
I have not heard anything. They've been really quiet on the roster and personnel front. No signings, no cuts really. So I know it's speculation out. I think we wrote that story, Chad, based on what Bleacher Report propositioned the Broncos to do. That's pick up Anthony Barr. I don't think they're going to do it, even with the George Payton connection. I think they like the linebackers that they have, and they're willing to go into camp with those same players.
All right, guys. Oh, Michaela, one last throwdown. Number 2 super chat of the night. Thank you. The Duchess says, I'm glad you don't have to choose a team anymore when going into the Hall. More fair. Yeah, especially for the guys that achieved greatness. It's not like Tony Dorsett, right? Tony Dorsett goes and plays however many years at like top of the mountain production with the Dallas Cowboys, and then swan song, kind of a forgettable year in Denver, and then retires. No. For the guys that actually do great things with multiple franchises, like Peyton did in Denver, I mean, yeah, or John Lynch did, or Brian Dawkins to a lesser extent, Aqib Talib. I think he's going to be in the conversation for the Hall sometime in the not too distant future, Zach. When you look at his accolades, the fact that he contributed to a world championship, fact that he's in the top 3 or 4 off memory of most pick sixes in the NFL history all time, and you look at the guys who are on that list they're all in the Hall basically, except Aqib Talib. I wouldn't be surprised if Talib finds his way to the Hall of Fame at some point.
Well, if personality was a factor, Chad, he'd be a first ballot guy. There's no one like Aqib Talib, nor will there ever be in the NFL again. But guys, that was the Mile High Huddle podcast. Did not butcher that. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Huddle Up Pod. You can follow Chad on Twitter at Chad and Jensen. You can follow myself at Kelberman NFL. Be sure to follow the main account on Twitter at Mile High Huddle. And also our producer Scott on Twitter at Scout Kennedy. If you guys want some hats, shirts, tank tops, coffee mugs, anything you can fancy is in that store. HuddleUpPod.com. Get your merch on as soon as you feel like it. And also Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. Like that page and follow that page. Guys, if you haven't, please go to Apple Podcasts and leave your football priest a 5-star review for a chance to win some merch each and every month. But as you see ticking below you, please do these 3 things. Takes a few seconds, helps us out immensely. Subscribe, like, and share this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. Again, it really helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans just like y'all. You're muted. You're muted.
I'm trying to get used to using key commands instead of touching the mic.
I hate when that happens. Yeah.
My bad. Guys, before we get out of here, I reminded myself we need to give you an update on this on the YouTube contest and Facebook. Here's your top rankings on YouTube. DWI guys at number 1 right now. And then the Duchess, Gregory, Sam Bam. That rounds out the, let's see. Yeah, DWI, Michaela, Gregory, Sam Bam, and Zeus McPeak, Stu at number 6, and then just a few names just outside. And then I can't flash the graphic, but I can tell you the list, the top 5 on Facebook as of tonight. Phil McLaughlin on top, Gary Leach Palmer, number 2, and those 2 are separated by about 700 stars is all. Mark Schrader, number 3, Travis Weber, 4, Jacob Foster, number 5. So as Zach said, appreciate you. Love you guys.
We'll see y'all Thursday. Take care. And as always, guys, go Broncos.
Don't forget, we'll be on the radio tomorrow, 2 p.m., Mile High Sports Radio, 98.1 FM, Denver.
Check it out.